Hi, this is Sarah Alderson and I'm Design for Aldersign, and this is my tutorial on cabling without a cable needle.
So this is a little swatch that I was using for the twisted stitch demonstration, but I'm also now going to do some cabling. So these rows of twisted stitches are now going to come towards each other and cross over. Not using a cable needle, I would do this on cables that are anything up to about 6 stitches long. I can do it with 8 ones, but it becomes much harder the more stitches you're trying to cross over. But certainly 1 and 1 cables like this is going to be, I would never use a cable needle for, and I regularly use it for up to crossing 3 by 3 cables without any problems. You do have to have a little bit of faith, because you do take your knitting off the needles and let it just hang, and you have to hope it doesn't unravel. I've yet to have a problem with that, but it does require a little bit of faith. So these 2 lines are going to come together and then they're going to cross over. So this knit stitch is going to cross places in front of this purl stitch. So because the stitch that's next is going to go in front, I'm going to put my needle of my right hand into the back of the stitch that's going to go behind. So however many stitches are going behind on a front cable, you put your needle into the back. I slide both stitches near to the end, and then I pinch with my finger and thumb underneath the stitches and slide both off. Now that's where you've got to have a bit of faith. So I've got 1 stitch, that knit stitch is just hanging loose. I'm going to put the left hand needle back into that stitch, and then put the stitch that I was holding onto in my right hand needle behind back onto the left hand needle. So now both stitches are back onto the needle with the front stitch crossed behind the left stitch. You then need to knit or purl them as you would do. So I'm going to purl that one, and this one's a twisted one, so I'm just going to knit twisted for that. So now those 2 stitches are crossed without using a cable needle. The next 2 are going to cross in the opposite direction. So this knit stitch is going to go in front of the purl stitch, or the purl stitch is going to go behind. Because the first stitch is going behind, I put my right hand needle into the front of the second stitch. Pinch underneath, slide both off, and you can see that loose purl stitch just hanging there, and I'm just going to slide it straight back onto my left hand needle, and then slide the right hand stitch back onto the needle, and then this one's going to be a twisted stitch. So I knit that twisted and do a normal purl. So both my stitches are crossed and I haven't used a cable needle. So then I'm going to just do 2 purls here and do the same thing again for this one. So the technique is, if the first stitch is going in front, you put your right hand needle into the back of the stitches, however many of them there are, that is going to go behind. So my right hand needle's gone into the back of 1 stitch. I slide both stitches off the left hand needle and then put the left hand needle back into the stitch. Make sure you get the whole stitch, although I can often sort that out afterwards. And then put the stitch that's on your right hand needle back on as well. You then knit or purl them as the pattern suggests. So that one I just need to sort out, and knit that one twisted. If the first stitch, like in this pair, the purl stitch is going to go behind this knit stitch, so the first stitch is going behind, I put my right hand needle into the front of the stitch that's coming in front. Slide both stitches off, put my left hand needle back into the one that's just hanging, and then put the stitch that's on my right needle back on. Then you knit and purl them as normal. So on the reverse of the fabric, I'm going to do something a bit different. You got 4 knit stitches together, so I'm just going to move along till I get the yarn to those 4 stitches, and then I'll show you a cable without a cable needle for 4 stitches. So I'm just going to knit these ones as normal. Just 2 purls. These are twisted. Right, so we've got these 4 stitches, 4 knit stitches. I'm going to do a cable where so it's a 4 stitch cable, and the 2 stitches it's a front cable, so the 2 stitches on this side are coming in front and the 2 stitches on that side are going behind. So this time, make sure you can still see me, I'm going to put the needle in to the back of the 2 stitches that are going behind. Slide all 4 stitches off my needle, put the needle back into the 2 stitches that are hanging loose, put the stitches on the right hand needle back on, and then knit them all. The more stitches you have, the tighter it gets, and that's because you're twisting the stitches without adding any extra yarn to them. So it does become a little bit more tricky. But if you can just see that now, you've got a cable. So I'll just finish off the row because it'll be easier to see. So those 2 stitches are the 2 there. They're the ones that have gone behind, and those are the 2. I'll show that again, sorry. Those are the 2 stitches that went behind. These 2 here, and these 2 here are the 2 stitches that came in front. And that's how you cable without a cable needle. I find it much faster. I don't have to worry about having a cable needle on me, and I don't have to worry that I'm going to drop it or lose it and the stitches are going to fall off, and because they've been pulled out of shape so much they're likely to unravel. I find I get less unravelling doing this technique than I do using a cable needle. So it's well worth having a practice. It does take a little bit of faith. I wouldn't recommend for the first few times you do it, you're doing it in a really slippery yarn like silk, because the more slippery the yarn is, the more likely it is to slide the stitch to slide off. But if you pinch underneath the stitches as you slide them off, it just holds them in place. They just don't move around, and so you can easily just pick up the stitch that you'd let go of in the right place, and it's really quite simple to do that, and it's great to not have to worry about using the cable needle. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed trying cables without a cable needle.